education programs is ongoing, and I do support the, what we've been trying to do. And I think we just need to take the time, step back a little bit, and really review the merits of what this is going to do or not do.
Sure.
So with that, I just can't support the proposal.
Thank you. I think we heard from the public and our committee members, and I want to acknowledge that there are two issues here. We're focusing predominantly on the first one, but with the voucher proposal, I'm not certain how that would increase the quality and the availability for families across California. But the one that we've spent the most time on is the early learning proposal, and I think it was said for me it's about access and quality, and it's kind of like you're reshuffling the deck of cards or moving the chairs around on the deck, but not putting more cards or chairs on the deck. I think that's the issue, is to cap this without having any additional resources does not focus on expanding it. And I know Mr. O'Donnell said he's not certain that it would, and I'm certain that it would not expand access to the number of kids participating. We know we have long waiting lists, and I think until we fully fund the system here in California and make sure at the minimum that every low-income eligible child for a TK, a Head Start, or a state preschool program, make sure that all of those kids are able to be served, that it's not the time to do something like this. So whether it's doing it now or the next year, I think a more deliberative process is the right approach, but I don't want to leave sight on the thing that the first and foremost, which is there's not enough money in the current system to do that. So with that, I think it would be disruptive, not to mention if you did this system to LEAs, or not did this, if you had a system that had LEAs provide this, what that would do to the current mixed delivery. And we heard from panels an hour ago as far as access and facilities. I think that would really upset the apple cart as far as what we're trying to achieve here in California. So with that, I do support the proposal by our staff to reject both of these issues, and looking for a motion from one of our committee members. Okay, motion and second to reject both of the governor's proposals. Please call the roll.
McCarty?
Aye.
Chavez? Irwin?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
O'Donnell?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next item, issue number 5, which is titled Options for Investment in Early Education and Child Development. That's a tight table up there.
Shy a chair.
Okay, we'll start with Deborah Kong with Early Edge California.
Thank you. I'm Deborah Kong, president of Early Edge California. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you to the legislature for its strong leadership on early learning. Early Edge stands with other early childhood education advocates in its belief that California must significantly invest in 3 fundamentally interrelated priorities: access, affordability, and quality, and both of which we note in our letter to the subcommittee. Today I'll talk about our proposals for additional investments in early educator quality, especially specifically investments in the professional learning of our early childhood workforce and in our quality rating and improvement system. Our focus is on quality because the real promise of early learning to fight poverty, to narrow the achievement gap, to ensure that our children have an equal opportunity to succeed in kindergarten and beyond can only be realized if our programs are of high quality. And at the heart of quality is great teaching. Young children thrive when they have secure and positive relationships that support the learning and development of children and respond to their individual progress. In a recent brief, identifying the building blocks of high-quality early childhood education programs. The Learning Policy Institute identified the importance of professional knowledge and skills and ongoing support for teachers. We propose 2 one-time investments towards strengthening the early childhood workforce so that our teachers possess the specialized knowledge, training, and ongoing professional learning they need to work with our diverse population. Strong early education systems provide support for teachers throughout their careers by providing coaching and mentoring. One study found that programs that offered coaching and mentoring had significantly lower teacher turnover and higher quality ratings. Given this research, Early Edge proposes a one-time investment to provide incentives for innovation in delivering evidence-based professional learning, including coaching and mentoring for teachers, caregivers, and staff in early childhood programs to strengthen quality and improve outcomes for children from low-income families, dual language learners, and children with special needs. Quality programs also ensure teachers know how to support children's learning and development. And as your previous panelists noted, an important part of this is building a strong teacher pipeline. To help strengthen workforce development and career pathways for the early care and education workforce, we propose a one-time investment in incentives to enhance the capacity of education and preparation programs so they can meet regional and local needs. On a related note, retaining talented staff is also critical, and as one of your panelists noted, increasing compensation can help recruit and retain talented teachers. As you may know, teacher turnover in early childhood education is high, with low compensation a primary factor in teachers' decision to leave. We also propose ongoing investments in California's quality rating and improvement system. Another building block of quality is a well-implemented and well-resourced quality rating and improvement system. We recommend an additional ongoing $25 million investment to the California State Preschool Program Block Grant and providing $35 million in ongoing funding for an infant-toddler block grant, which received a one-time $25 million investment in last year's budget. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss investments in early childhood education. As you know, an investment in our young learners is an investment in the future of California, and we look forward to working with you to achieve that bright future.
Thank you. Next, Donna Sneeringer.
Good morning, and thank you. I'm Donna Sneeringer with the Child Care Alliance of Los Angeles. And before I begin my specific remarks, I wanted to note that we're part of a large alliance of agencies that put together a budget letter to your committee looking specifically at targeting reinvestments toward reimbursement rates, increasing access, and improving family-friendly policies. I'm going to drill down specifically in my comments about informal care license-exempt providers because they're often forgotten in the discussion. Informal care arrangements are part of the continuum of choices that families select as they're balancing work and parenting. In California, their exempt status from licensing requirements has given them the moniker of license-exempt providers, sort of a made-up term based on our licensing structure. Most parents, if not all, use this care as a regular part of their life. I myself used an informal care provider when my daughter was an infant because I wanted to make sure somebody would pick her up when she cried and that I wanted somebody to talk to her throughout the day. Unfortunately, in the subsidy system, despite the critical role these caregivers play, family, friend, and neighbor exempt providers were hit particularly hard with budget reductions. During the Great Recession, in addition to rates being held flat for a decade, these providers faced an additional 30% reduction. It's important to note that for low-income families, many of whom work non-traditional hours in service industries, this is the only type of care that can actually meet their needs. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that among the working poor, 1/3 of individuals are in non-traditional hour positions with frequently changing schedules, the type of care that can only be provided by informal care. These providers are often looked down upon because they're not part of the formal early learning system, but they're critical for families as a valid part of the continuum of care. Even with last year's small increase of 5%, we went from 60% of the family child care rate up to 65%. California's reimbursement rate system still pays poverty wages to these caregivers. I want to give you just a couple of examples of providers that are paid by our agencies in Los Angeles. We have a family, friend, and neighbor provider who cares for a school-aged child in the evenings. She provides care for 35 or more hours per week, so we pay her a monthly wage of $420.46 for a minimum of 150 hours per month. That breaks down to $2.80 per hour. Last year, prior to the increase, it was $2.57 an hour, so we gave her a 23-cent raise. Still pretty darn low. Another example is a part-time care provider, a family friend and neighbor provider who cares for a preschool-age child. Because care averages less than 35 hours a week, we're required to pay an hourly rate. And in this case, it's $2.75 per hour. So we pay her about $264 a month for 96 hours of care. We believe these rates aren't sustainable, and by not increasing them, we're losing access to child care for families, both in their buying power when they enroll in a subsidy program, and make it difficult for them to even find someone willing to take these rates to care for their children. This is particularly true for our lowest income families in the CalWORks system. We obviously are very supportive of the Women's Caucus proposal. We're very pleased that they're looking at license exempt rates as part of their proposed increases, and we really urge your committee to keep this type of care in your consideration.
Thank you. Parent Voices?
Hi, my name is Anna Calles. Hi, my name is Anna Calles. I'm here on behalf of Parent Voices of Sonoma County. I have a child who's 13 years old, and her name is Nayeli Gonzalez. There's a few issues in the child care system that I wanted to address. The first being the child care waitlist and child care slots, provider rates, the SMI, and 12-month eligibility. First, I wanted to tell you my story of how child care has impacted my life and how I've benefited from it. I grew up in low-income apartments, and although we had tons of freedom, we also had tons of drugs and gangs and violence. I didn't have an after-school program to attend, and I hardly went to school. When I did attend, I was too behind to catch up. I became a young mother at the age of 17 and had a beautiful baby girl. I went back to high school, and I graduated in 2003 with my diploma. I went to the JC right after high school. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse, and my daughter's father was arrested and deported back to Mexico. I became a single mother at the age of 21. We were homeless for a brief moment, but I graduated the JC with my AA in culinary arts in 2007. I was able to get subsidized childcare for getting on welfare and being homeless. My subsidy was also an exempt position, and I was able to have my mother take care of my daughter, and so she wasn't able to work to be able to take care of my daughter at that time. Welfare and the subsidy saved my life and pulled me out of homelessness and gave my daughter a spot in childcare. It kept me working and my child in a safe environment that I trusted. I got a job at the restaurant industry, which was my childhood dream. I quickly realized that being a single mother and working nights was not going to work. Reflecting on my childhood and going through what I went through, I was inspired to pursue higher education and get my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I had a child care subsidy for my daughter so that she was taken care of while I worked and went to school. I had 4 on-call jobs. I was so fortunate to have child care, even though the hourly rate was ridiculously low, paying $3 an hour, and this is a problem in our system, and it's not okay. While working these jobs, I also had to report all of my income to my workers and have my employers fill out quarterly reports, which they were not thrilled about. They would much rather hire somebody that didn't carry the baggage that I carried. And although I was thankful for the help I was receiving, it was degrading and very confusing for my employers because of my non-traditional hours and the way that the paperwork is set up. It's not for non-traditional hour people. Many times I felt my job was at risk because of my employer's reactions. Receiving HUD, Medi-Cal, child care subsidies, and all of them needing their paperwork filled out was exhausting. That's why we need 12-month eligibility. I am proud to say that after all of the years of struggling, I finally graduated with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice in December, and I will walk in May with distinctions. When I received my email from my professor saying that I was given the award of distinctions, I didn't believe them. For going through what I went through, it was amazing, and I was shocked that I even got distinctions. This would not have happened if I didn't have child care subsidies and my family's support. I was that statistic, but given the right opportunity, I was able to succeed, and now I'm showing her, my daughter, that we'll break the cycle of poverty. Fortunately, I had my daughter in early Head Start and Head Start, which really advanced my daughter, and because her birthday is in October and her readiness, she was able to start kindergarten at the age of 4. She really excelled in preschool, and she developed a love for art and singing there. Just this last month, Nayeli was accepted to Art Quest, which is an art-based high school in Santa Rosa. At 13 years old, my daughter phased out of childcare, and now there's a spot open for another child. I'm a Parent Voices leader, and I've been advocating for childcare for 2 years now. I've seen parents come to Parent Voices crying because they're on the wait list and cannot accept their dream jobs because they do not have childcare and can't afford the $1,000 a month. This is such an urgent need. Studying criminal justice has really showed me how dangerous it is to not invest in our kids now. We are constantly putting Band-Aids on huge gashes with childcare and education to fund prisons. I can't stress enough how important this is. We are here to thank you for all of your support and to ask you to keep supporting us in breaking down the wall of poverty. As you know, if we invest in childcare and early education now, our children are less likely to be involved in the criminal justice system. Paying our childcare providers a decent wage is also so important to the quality of care to support our kids. A person making $3 an hour makes it harder to ensure that our children are ready for school. Parent Voices asks for your support for comprehensive childcare and to allocate funds for the thousands of kids on the wait list here in California. It's imperative to defrost the SMI, which has been frozen since 2007 and needs to be updated. There are many families who do not qualify for childcare because the numbers are based on pre-recession income. People cannot take raises or higher positions, and they still cannot afford to pay childcare without subsidies because of the frozen SMI. Again, we thank you for supporting us, and I hope my story inspires you to help unfreeze the SMI, add more fundings for childcare slots, pay a livable wage for childcare workers, and implement 12-month eligibility. Without all of these, our children are at risk of falling through the cracks. Let's make childcare a priority. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that very powerful and moving testimony. Thanks for coming. Next, we'll move on to Ms. Kate Miller, Children Now.
Thank you. Kate Miller with Children Now, and we've joined our colleagues here at this table and a range of other organizations in supporting the budget proposal, the Women's Caucus, and today, and the various facets of it that you've heard today. I'll focus my comments, particularly today, on some critical opportunities within that request that we see to really build out our infrastructure to support quality improvement, workforce development, and a system that works more efficiently for children, providers, and families. We're looking at proposals that are not starting from scratch, really building off last year's investments, at the same time meeting some of the new federal child care and development block grant provisions that the state needs to address, and move us incrementally toward a long-term vision of really achieving a high-quality early care and education system. The first proposal I'd like to highlight is the Child Care Resource and Referral Data Efficiency Project, in layman's term, the Consumer Education Database, which the legislature made an initial startup investment of $300,000 last year. We're requesting an additional one-time $15 million investment in that to really build out that system and make significant progress on its plans. The goal really is essentially housed marketplace that lets providers connected to local referral agencies list their services and availability. There'd be a mobile component so families can access it by phone, the internet, through face-to-face contact at their local resource and referral agency, but it really enhances the capacity of referral agencies to connect families with vetted quality providers. And by linking individual systems of data across the state, it really will provide state and local agencies the information and information that you need to really strengthen our child care system. The other proposal I'd like to highlight is the QRIS block grant proposal that was mentioned by my colleague at Early Edge. We really encourage the legislature to look at increasing the state preschool block grant, QRIS block grant, by $25 million and expand the one-time $25 million infant and toddler block grant into a $35 million ongoing program. Really, when we talk about the cost of quality support systems, these block grants are just modest contributions to this sort of complex array we have of state and local and federal resources that are used for quality improvement efforts at the local level across the 58 counties. But these block grants do really provide a critical, stable funding stream, both for the counties that now are no longer receiving the federal Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant, as well as for those counties that are just starting to begin to plan and implement quality improvement systems. These block grants are essential. And they really support not only just continuous improvement with programs and centers or family child care homes, but also really drive workforce development, with coaching, opportunities for training, incentives for higher education. And they also provide a very consistent pathway for quality improvement efforts to also look at additional supports like developmental screening, family engagement, all the things that were mentioned earlier in one of your earlier panels. And also, an essential part of this proposal is based on initial feedback and data from counties that we suggest amending the language of statute relating to the block grants, really to ensure greater efficiency, more local flexibility, more meaningful coordination between all the folks that are on the ground implementing the block grants, and better leveraging of local and federal funds, and also adjustments to the statutes so we can really broaden the impact of the quality improvement efforts in all learning settings, and really kind of push consortia towards implementing these grants more comprehensively to support the quality of a local mixed delivery system. And I would just end by noting that we really see adopting the 12-month eligibility period mentioned by Parent Voices, consistent with the AB 2150 that's being heard now in the legislature, as a very basic investment in the quality of our system. It will not only reduce administrative burden and stress for families, and which we know stress doesn't help anyone, least of all young children. It will also ensure less churn of families in and out of the system. And at the end of the day, that really means continuity of relationships, care, and services, which research shows us that is what makes a difference for children. So at the very basic level, I think that's an important, critical step to investing in the quality of our system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Danita Stromgren, representing the Northern Directors Group. The Northern Directors Group is a proud collaborative partner working with representatives from the child care field in supporting the Legislative Women's Caucus budget request and bringing forward a unified voice for child care through this budget cycle. First and foremost, we support an increase in the child care reimbursement rates. You've heard people talk about the challenges associated with that. We request an increase in the rates both for the contracted centers as well as for the vouchers programs, but I'll specifically address the increase in the regional market rate for the voucher system and leave the standard reimbursement rate to others more qualified to speak to that issue. While the increase in the budget year 15-16 was well received by both providers and agencies, we continue to find that most child care providers continue to be reimbursed at the cap or the maximum amount of the reimbursement rate through the regional market rate survey and current reimbursement. This means basically that we're still paying providers largely well below the market rate for care. This year, we need to focus on increasing the regional market rate to the most recent survey level of 2014. Most importantly, this increases the access to care for parents and provides them with the opportunity to select, not only the most appropriate provider who can care for their children, but also hopefully increase the quality of the care options that are available to them. It also clearly allows us to pay providers a living wage. Secondly, we need to increase the funding to serve more children and families. You've heard from Parent Voices and others about the long waiting list. Despite the fact that the funding for care has increased in the past 2 years, the cost of care has also increased, and therefore the amount of dollars that we've put into the system has really not increased the number of spaces available for children and families. Even if you consider the growth in the funding in the state preschool arena, we have over 36,000 fewer spaces for children in childcare since 2008. And we continue to estimate the need for care around 200,000 children and more. So clearly, in order to best accommodate those families, we need more funding. We support the family-friendly policies that are noted in the Legislative Women's Caucus ask. In particular, the state median income level remains at the 2000 level, which is still using the 2005 data. This not only impacts a family's ability to make more money and remain on the subsidy program, but recent data collection from some of the alternative payment agencies indicates that perhaps as many as 3 times the number of families have been terminated from services for their lack of ability to pay the family fee. 3 times more than those that are terminated for getting it to the cap of the state median income level. And we believe this means that families, despite the fact that they have some subsidy, that the income levels that they're now paying family fees at is at the 2005 income level, but they have 2016 incomes now. So in fact, what's happening is those families are starting to pay fees at 30% of the state median income as you figure it in the 2014 level. So we really need to not only look at increasing the top of the state median income, but as we do that, we'll be increasing the family fees scale so that they'll start paying fees at a more appropriate income level. At this point in time, a family of 3 would begin to pay fees right now at around $23,000 per year or $1,950 per month. Using the 2014 schedule, they would begin to pay fees at $28,000 a year, or about $2,300 per month. So a significant difference of $5,000 per year or $400 a month. Additionally, we support the 12-month eligibility, and we would like to continue to work with the State Department of Education to ensure that agencies are comfortable with the mechanisms to implement any new policies around the 12-month eligibility. We clearly feel that this would reduce the burden of unnecessary documentation on parents and providers, as well as administering agencies, but we want to ensure that the implementation of it is clearly in line with the intent of that proposal. Agencies are currently redetermining family eligibility every 4 months to about 30 to 40% of the families, and we find that close to 90% of them have no income eligibility change. So with all of these, we must continue to bear in mind that agencies continue to struggle to administer voucher subsidy programs with an inadequate funding level for their operational expenses. Reducing the administrative burden on programs will help relieve some of those pressures, but agencies continue to be woefully behind in providing adequate, comparable salaries and benefits to recruit and retain qualified staff to appropriately serve their clients. So we look forward to continuing to work with legislators and staff and Legislative Women Caucus members to move forward a really progressive plan for this year's budget cycle on child care. Thank you.